Katie's saying the far right is indeed a threat to the ex-Muslim movement. Yes, and that's why you shouldn't even flirt with them even a little bit. It basically takes the whole thing down. And by far right, by the way, we also mean Hindutva. Okay, Yasmin Muhammad, if you're watching, stop flirting with the Hindutva. It's going to take that is a threat to the ex-Muslim movement. Okay.
Yeah. And it's such a good. I'm so thankful that they expose themselves. I'm so thankful that they expose themselves because I do think today I feel so much better now, right, than I did maybe about a year ago with all of this. And I right now. It's just anyway. I think we're on the right track, and I think all the people that you mentioned and many more, you guys are doing just a fantastic job in taking this to the next level. I love it.
Yeah.
And this video that we're hearing is proof.
Oh yeah, Bobo is saying, I think Islamism is rising in India, though Muslim leaders keep telling Muslims to be more Muslim to make their presence felt and fight Hindutva. Hindutva will lead to radicalization. Yeah, this is exactly what we're saying. The far right in India, see, when you don't have far right, we are winning against Islam. Okay, the less far right you have, the greater our wins are against Islam. When you actually have far right, which are anti-Muslim instead of anti-Islam, it actually helps grow Islam, right? So this is why we might not be winning as much in India when it comes to Islam, because the fight is in India is against Muslims instead of against Islam.
Yeah, I have a different view of that. I have in the short term, I think that's right. Long term, I think that these are backlashes. Like the Hindutva is basically a movement that's trying to hold on to something that is dying. The world is progressing. People are, kind of letting go of these nationalist ideas, these hyper-religious ideas. So there's these fringe movements that become a little bit bigger and they become louder. They end up taking over a lot of the mainstream narrative. They end up taking over the headlines, but they're not taking over the trend lines. The trend lines, even in India, are still heading towards secular progress. No. And the same thing, like a lot of, just one last thing, I think a lot of the Muslims and the Hindus in India are watching these like sort of Muslims and Hindu people go at each other, and many of them are just getting sick of it all, especially the younger generation.
No, I don't. Wait, you don't. Mm-hmm. That's not a disagreement. I agree with you with that, because as much as I look at the short-term situation in India, and the short-term future for India seems very bad, the long term looks really good when you look at the opinions of younger generation, right? So long term, I'm short term, I'm very, very pessimistic about India. Long term, I'm very, very optimistic about India, right? Yeah, but also in the short term, I do think that the whole anti-Islam activism in India is completely been derailed in the short term, at least, because of how much Hindutva is basically how bigoted and how anti-Muslim Hindutva is, right? So that's what I think. And also, just being anti-Muslim pushes Muslims to be more tribal and use Islam as their identity and try to use Islam as a way to protect themselves. And also, religion as a whole feeds on being victimized, right? Victimization helps religion grow. So there's many different elements that work with that. Katie actually agrees with me. Muslims in India are becoming so tribalistic that they are even holding on the ex-Muslims as part of their community. Indian Muslims think of Javed Akhtar as a Muslim.
So Javed Akhtar is a very outspoken atheist who is from a Muslim background. He's a big sort of a writer. He's a poet who writes a lot of the lyrics for the Indian movies and everything. And he recently, actually last year, he ended up he got the Richard Dawkins Award. Right, so that was very controversial for a lot of people. They're like, "Oh, why are you giving the Richard Dawkins Award to a Muslim?" Because people think he's a closet jihadist. The whole classic story. But let's let's go back to that video, because Zakir Naik goes into a prescription for what they should do to bring these Muslims back as well. So I wanted to.
Can I just read two more comments before we go? These are by our patrons. Katie is saying many young Muslims hesitate about questioning their religion because of their threat of the far right parties outside their community. Exactly, right? Because even if you're curious about maybe your religion is wrong, when you're being dealing with such a huge threat against your community, you feel like you're betraying the Muslims and you're not showing unity and you're not helping the Muslims defend themselves against this giant threat if you question Islam, right? And Bobo also saying because ex-Muslims will be subjected to the Hindutva bigotry. And yes, exactly. When Hindutva comes for Muslims, they do not differentiate between ex-Muslims and Muslims that much, right?
I gotta say that this is actually a really important point. This is in the Atlantic. If you guys can look up this article called the future of ex-Muslims in Trump's America or something. I mean, this is an interview that I did with the Atlantic where we talked about this exact thing, that it makes the work of ex-Muslims a lot harder when you have the far right on the rise, because they try to hijack the cause and it discredits us and makes it much more harder. People don't want to be associated with it. And I will admit, like, I found in the last 4 years, I did have to start talking about these issues in a different way, like in terms of tones and the tone and everything. I had to, I wanted to, and I very purposely change the kind of messaging I was doing. I mean, the content was still the same. The way I had to talk about it consciously had to change, which was very annoying. I'm glad we don't have to do that anymore, hopefully.
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.